Have you seen the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap 2? Because we are going to be talking about all the nerdy gear goodness in this trailer for the sequel to a musical comedy classic. We're going to talk about what guitars and gear are featured in this 2.5 minute trailer, and if you can buy any of it, what it costs, and why Fender and Gibson might not want anything to do with this movie. I'm Thom Tran, stand-up comedian, guitarist, and gear nerd, and this is a special episode of my gear series, The Story Behind the Strings, because this is an excerpt from my podcast, Comedy on 11, where I talk about comedy and music. Now, let's hit it. There was a bunch of gear I wanted to talk about this week. There's a bunch, I got a new microphone that I wanted to talk about. There's some new pedals that I wanted to talk about. Well, new to me pedals that I wanted to talk about. But then, the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap 2 just released. And if you've watched some of the other listicle shows that I did, This Is Spinal Tap, the original that came out in the 80s, that was one of the top musical comedy movies of all time. On my list, anyway. And they just released the trailer. And my connection to this movie, it's a little one. Pun not intended. I did not mean to do that when I tell you what my connection is with This Is Spinal Tap 2. But the very first episode of this show, the very first episode of Comedy on 11, the podcast, my good friend and guest was Brad Williams, a comedian that I tour with, a guy that I love to death, and he appears in This Is Spinal Tap 2. So, he was the first person I had on the show. And then this weekend they released the trailer, but then they also released the scene that he was in with Sir Elton John. And if you've seen the original Spinal Tap, you'll have an idea of what happened. Now, I can't play it because I'm putting this over on YouTube, and copyright strikes being what they are. I will put the link to both the trailer, but also to the video for the video with Sir Elton John. And Brad, you can see Brad. Brad's you'll see him. So what I want to do is, because I've watched the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap 2, probably, I'm not exaggerating, a dozen times already. First of all, I love the movie. It's one of my, it's part of my musical DNA as a comedian and a musician. But I'm so excited because I'm a gear nerd. And I was like, look at all the gear in the trailer. So I'm going to do a breakdown of the gear in the new trailer for This Is Spinal Tap 2. There's going to be one caveat to that. Now, part of the trailer has flashbacks from the original movie, but it also includes a lot of new footage. So I'm actually going to just focus on the instruments that we're going to see in the new movie. At some point, I might go back and I'll watch all of This Is Spinal Tap, the original one, and do a breakdown of the instruments in that. I'm sure somebody's already done that. But we are going to take a look at, scene by scene, the gear that you see in the trailer for This Is Spinal Tap 2. The film comes out September 12th, 2025, which is just a few weeks away, starring, of course, Christopher Guest, which I apparently spelled incorrectly, Christopher Guest as Nigel Tufnell, Michael McKean as David St. Hubbins, and Harry Shearer as Derek Smalls, who, fun fact, I had the opportunity to meet one time because he came into my office. Not Harry Shearer, but Derek Smalls. He did not break character one time. He came to my office, he was promoting a book or something, and he was very cool, and he took a bunch of pictures with the staff. So, we are going to, scene by scene, talk about the gear from This Is Spinal Tap 2 in theaters September 12th, 2025. Again, I will put a link to the actual trailer in the description. Can't show it because copyright stuff. I might not get struck. I don't want to take that chance. In the scene, you see Michael McKean playing in a mariachi band. And this looks like, I did some research on this, looks like a Dean nylon 3/4 travel guitar. If you look at the headstock, it says Dean. And I tried to look it up. I looked it up, tried to find it, and it looks like it is actually one of these, a Dean Flight Nylon Mahogany Acoustic Travel Guitar. You can see it is a nylon strung guitar. The headstock kind of looks similar. That bridge area kind of looks similar as well. So I'm pretty sure this is the Dean Flight Nylon acoustic guitar, which, as you can see from this listing on Reverb, only costs like $189. So not super expensive. I'm sure if you want to pick one up, you can do so very easily on Reverb. The next shot we look at is going to be Nigel Tufnell. He's working in a cheese shop here, and you've got 3 guitars behind him, which I did some research again. On the far left, over here, we've got a 1964 National Val Pro 82, or at least that's the closest I could find. There are some differences, and I'll show you in a minute, but that was the closest I could find to what's on the wall. Next to that is a Fender Ventera 2 70s Mustang in competition orange. And then below that is a 1960s famous vintage Star Sunburst electric bass guitar. Now, what's interesting about this shot, and I'll talk about why in a minute, but also why it's kind of weird, you don't see the headstocks for any of those. And I think it might be a licensing thing. I saw Andy over the Guitar Geek talking about, how there are no Gibsons in this movie, in the new movie. And because there's the rumor that Gibson actually charges for product placement. So I don't know if that's the case, and we'll talk about why. I'm not sure about that in a second, but I did do some research on these. And again, that's a 64 National Val Pro. And one of the reasons I said there are some differences, because I did look for 1964 Val Pro. And this is what I found on Walt Grace Vintage Guitars. A 1964 Val Pro 82 electric guitar in red burst, listing at $2,300. Now, these knobs right here, they look as if they're white in the photo for the screen grab that I took over here. But that is a 64-ish Val Pro 82. Might be a different model. Let me know if you have any more information on that. I'm not very familiar with that brand of guitar. The next guitar over there is a used 1960s Framus vintage 5/149 Star Sunburst electric bass. That's the one that's in the lower part of the screen. This one was listing on the GC website for about $850. And then we also had the Fender Ventera 2 70s Mustang in competition orange. This one's off Z Sounds for just under $1,000. The next scene we're going to look at, Nigel is playing in an Irish bar with some other musicians. He is playing a Butterscotch Telecaster style electric. Now, the reason I say Telecaster style electric is because if you look really close at the photo, you can't see a Fender logo on the headstock. I blew it up. I tried to high res it. I took a look. There's nothing on there. So it looks like a generic Fender Telecaster style guitar. This young lady over here is playing an Irish bouzouki, which is a type of lute. There's this gentleman playing an Irish bodrum frame drum, and then this guy's playing a flute, and this one is playing violin/fiddle. So again, I took a look, I tried really hard, and then there's another shot we're going to talk about in a minute or so about why I think it's a knockoff Telecaster brand. The next scene we're going to look at is this on stage shot with the band practicing. Over here, Derek Smalls is playing some kind of bass guitar. I try to find out what. I mean, it's hard to see because the actual, that's on stage with the video projection here. You can't see the headstock. I'm not a bassist, so I'm not super familiar with that body style. I looked it up. I saw a couple things that were close on the internet, but I couldn't find out for sure. So if you know what kind of bass that is that he's playing, let me know in the comments below. Then over here in the middle, we've got Nigel playing, again, that Butterscotch Telecaster style guitar with a black pick guard. Obviously, it's too far away to see if there's a logo on there, but I don't see a logo on there. And then over on the far right, you see David St. Hubbins, Michael McKean's character, playing an Ibanez Satriani signature JS1000, which we will get a better look at later in the trailer, and I'll show that to you in a couple minutes. But yeah, that is a Satriani signature style JS1000. The next scene we're going to look at is this. This is what I was talking about. This is a better look at that butterscotch Telecaster style guitar. Again, if you look real close, right here on the headstock, there's no logo, and you can buy, replacement Telecaster necks, Stratocaster necks, whatever necks, and just scratch off the logo and put that on. So this makes me question if it is a licensing thing, because Andy over at Guitar Geek was like, yeah, you don't see Gibsons in here. And the Gibsons were all over the original This Is Spinal Tap. I don't know if it's a Fender thing, because in a minute or so, I'm going to show you another shot where there is an Ibanez logo very clear and present. Clear and present like the movie with Harrison Ford. But also Schecter shows up very prominently, that acoustic guitar with the Dean logo on it. So maybe it is a licensing thing, that you can't see the Fender logo, or they wouldn't show the Fender logo. The next shot we're going to look at is just the band sitting around being interviewed by Rob Reiner's character. And literally it's just a bunch of guitars. That's what I wrote. It's just a bunch of guitars. It's really difficult to see what any of these are right off the bat. I mean, over here you can see a Union Jack painted guitar, and we'll get to what that probably is in a couple of minutes. And then there's this acoustic guitar, but we've got some processors back there. We've got some road cases. Not much to see here. The next shot we're going to get to, Rob Reiner. Rob's sitting there with, it looks like a black Stingray bass back there. Of course, it's, because of the field of view, it's kind of blurred out there. A bunch of Marshall stacks again. But from what I can tell, it's a Stingray bass. And one of the reasons I think it's a Stingray bass is because, well, first of all, the shape and the style of it. Ernie Ball, I think it's a Stingray 4H. The pick guard looks the same. It's white. It's got, from what I could tell, it's got the Ernie Ball Music Man style 3/1 tuning pegs. So it's probably a Stingray. Also because those other two hero guitars that I was talking about, those are both Ernie Ball guitars, and we will talk about those in just a second. Next up, here's that shot that I was telling you about, a better look at the Ibanez Joe Satriani signature JS1000. This is in a scene where this has to be after that rehearsal scene from earlier, and it looks like David St. Hubbins, Michael McKean's character, is just walking away. He's taking off the guitar, but you can very clearly see that it is the Ibanez Joe Satriani signature JS1000, which, as we just saw, if you want to buy one, you can certainly get one for, what is it again? $3,000? Yeah, about $2,900 on, oh wait. Well, this was on Reverb and the listing's over. But that is definitely the guitar that David St. Hubbins is playing in that scene. Now, the next shot, this one is a little tough as well. This is definitely Derek Smalls playing some sort of Schecter bass. I tried to figure out which one it was. You can clearly see that the logo says Schecter. It's a very, identifiable logo. It's almost like a Fender logo. You look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's a Schecter. So it's really hard to tell here. Again, I'm not a bassist, so if you know what model and brand that Derek Smalls is playing right there, let me know. Next shot, you actually get a better view of his bass in this next shot over here. So you can see that Schecter logo again. But this shot is primarily of Michael McKean playing the PRS McCarty. It's a 594 series. It's hard to tell what kind, with this shot, the wood grain, but you can tell by the inlays that it's a PRS. I looked it up. Well, I tried to look it up anyway, and it looks like it is a McCarty series, possibly this one, the SE McCarty 594 single cut standard vintage cherry, something along this line. But yeah, you can see the single cutaway. It's got obviously the PRS style inlays, but that's about as close as I could find to that guitar. Maybe in a different shot we can get a better view of that and see what we're looking at. But yeah, definitely looks like it's a PRS, obviously. And that one, how much is this going for? How much is this PRS going for? If it is this PRS McCarty 594 SE, you're looking at about $800. So, relatively affordable. You can pick that up. It looks like this movie is going to have a combination of like really vintage guitars, really affordable guitars, and guitars that don't even exist. And we'll talk about that in a second. Next up, Nigel Tufnell is playing a Collings 470 JL Julian Lang antique sunburst guitar. Now, I don't know much about this guitar. I looked it up on the interwebs, and wow. What I just said about, this movie is going to have a crazy combination of affordable gear, vintage gear, and just really expensive gear. Because I looked this up. I looked up this Collings 470, and from what I could find on Reverb, there's a Collings 470 JL Julian Lang Antique Sunburst for $10,151. That's what it was listed for. The auctions or the listings ended, but holy crap! In one scene, Michael McKean's playing a $180 Dean acoustic nylon strung guitar, and later on, Nigel Tufnell's playing a $10,000 Collings 470. So very interesting. We have a few more guitars to go, just a couple, but I'm excited to see the whole movie and see how much gear is going to be involved. Now, I was talking about earlier about licensing stuff. Again, I'm going to reference Andy from Guitar Geek a lot because he did mention, other than the flashbacks from the original movie, you don't see a single Gibson in this. And it's interesting as well that the shots of Fenders, the Ventera 2, you don't see the Fender logo. In the shots with the Telecaster, that butterscotch Telecaster, you don't see that logo either. And I think it's because of what we're about to see next. There are two hero shots that you're going to see. David St. Hubbins, Michael McKean's character, is playing a Union Jack painted Ernie Ball Valentine. Okay, which, as far as I know, doesn't exist. It's a custom painted job, I'm pretty sure, done just for this movie. I looked it up. You can't buy one. They're not available. I don't see any that are custom painted and available. So that, this shot of David St. Hubbins on stage playing a Union Jack painted Ernie Ball Valentine, and then this next shot of Nigel playing a Union Jack painted Ernie Ball St. Vincent. That, along with the fact that you don't see Fender logos anywhere else. There's that Ernie Ball Stingray bass that we looked at earlier that was in the back. It was fuzzy. It was definitely a background character, for lack of a better term. I think Ernie Ball might have paid, a good amount to be featured in the film. Or Fender just went, don't, if you're going to have like other guitars, you can't have the Fender logo. And it's weird because like again that shot of the Ibanez. Let's see if I can bring that shot back up. Where's that shot? Right here. This shot of the Satriani, the JS1000, you can very clearly see the Ibanez logo. So that leads me to believe that Ernie Ball Music Man may have played a significant monetary role in this movie. Meaning, like, I don't know if you know that Die Hard, the movie with Bruce Willis, they were supposed to use, like, I want to say it was some sort of drill. And the company that made the drill was like, we'll give you, we'll pay you $100,000 if you feature the drill in the movie. So that's where movies and productions get a lot of their budget from. They'll go to like a McDonald's or they'll go to a whatever fast food restaurant and go, hey, there's this scene we need to do a thing. And if we use your company, you pay us to put your logo in the movie. I mean, the best example is E.T., the extraterrestrial, back in the 80s. The story with that was the Steven Spielberg and the people who produced that movie went to M&M first. And they were like, hey, we have this scene with this alien and he needs to have some candies. Can we use M&Ms? And M&M said no. So they went to Reese's, and that's why E.T. eats Reese's Pieces in the movie. That's why the extraterrestrial is eating Reese's Pieces in the movie. I don't remember if Reese's actually paid them to put that in the movie, but I know they went to M&M first, and then M&M was like, nah, we're good. We're M&M. We don't need that. But bro, they put Reese's in that movie. E.T. is a summer blockbuster of, I want to say 82 or 83. Reese's Pieces, their stock and their sales went through the roof because they were associated with that movie. So I'm thinking because Ernie Ball may have said, hey, we're going to give you these two custom painted Union Jack guitars, the St. Vincent and this Valentine. They either gave them those for free for the movie, or I'm sure there's going to be like a thank you in the credits where they're like, thank you to Ernie Ball Music Man. Or Ernie Ball just straight up was like, hey, we'll give you a bunch of money to help produce this, because that's where, that's what an executive producer does. Well, one of the things an executive producer does, they find the money to make the movie. It's not just going to a studio and going, hey, we need, I'm going to throw a number out there, $10 million to make this movie. An executive producer goes, hey, we need $10 million to make this movie. $10. We need $10 million to make this movie, but we can get $500,000 from Ernie Ball Music Man, and they can give us guitars for the movie. I don't know if that's the case. It certainly seems like it. And just the fact that Gibson is nowhere in the new footage that I've seen yet. Of course, it's only like a 2-minute trailer, so who knows? But these hero shots of, that's an Ernie Ball St. Vincent biggest. That's a hero shot. When I say a hero shot, that's what I'm talking about. A hero shot is when it is featured in your face, whether it's a guitar, like when I was working on military consulting on films, whether it was the weapon that the hero was using. That's why it's called a hero shot. It's like the super detailed prop or thing that you need for the scene. That's the hero blank, blank, blank. In this case, they're Ernie Ball Music Man guitars. And if we look back at the other shots, like, yeah, you kind of see the instruments, except for the Satriani. That's the one that's kind of bugging me out. It's the Satriani, like, they don't bother. I mean, that's a very specific guitar. That is a Joe Satriani Donnie. That is a JS1000, and the Ibanez logo is right there. It's right there. So, methinks that it is a licensing thing. Why I think in this shot, any shot with the Telecaster, I spent an enormous amount of time trying to AI up-res this shot to see if I could find the Fender logo, and I could not. So, methinks that Ernie Ball Music Man may have a great deal to play in this movie. Marshall probably does. Marshall, I mean, they're big as hell everywhere as well. All the scenes with the Marshall stacks back there, and of course with the original movie, the this one goes to 11-bit classic. People still reference it, 20 some odd years later. I feel like Marshall has a lot to do with this movie. Ernie Ball's got a lot to do with this movie, but also I feel like Fender and Gibson both went, nah, those companies are, they're Fender and Gibson. They're the big two. And they probably, again, I have no actual knowledge of what happened, despite the fact that my friend is in the movie. Brad is in the movie. I've seen him. They did not cut his scenes. Very happy to see that. He's so excited. I'm so excited. I'm just excited that I'm friends with him. I feel like Fender and Gibson just went, nah, we don't need to do this. Or they said, hey, if you're going to feature Ernie Ball or Ibanez or whatever, we don't want our stuff featured in the movie in the same way. I could be totally wrong, could be totally off base, but from what I've seen of this 2.5-minute trailer, that seems to be the case. You have, and Ibanez don't give an F. Ibanez is like, whatever, take this Satriani, take this limited edition JS 1000 custom painted Joe Satriani signature guitar. Ibanez is like, we don't give an F. Just do it. Whatever. We don't care. But yeah, I think, and time will tell if, Ernie Ball had something significant to do with this movie. I think it's very interesting. Just from a production standpoint. I live in Hollywood. I've been working in Hollywood film since 2008 in one capacity or another, whether it was like in front of or behind the camera. And from a production standpoint, I get that. I totally get that. That's why you see a lot of movies where, if you ever see a guitar in a TV show, usually it's a TV show because the budgets on TV show are trash. You'll see somebody playing a guitar in a TV show and they'll actually just take some tape. They don't give an F either. They'll just take a tape and put it over the logo on the headstock. That happens because you got to pay a licensing fee. You got to make sure it's okay with the company. And if the guitar is like, that particular guitar is instrumental to, no pun intended, or did I? If that guitar is instrumental to that scene, but the company won't give you the okay to, to use their logo, then you're SOL, unless you pay them a ridiculous licensing fee. So I think that's what happened. I think Fender and Gibson both went, we don't want to do this. And Ernie Ball went, yeah, man, we'll give you guitars. We'll custom paint them for you. They might have given them some money for it too. I don't know. We'll see. That'll probably show up in the credits. I'm sure it'll come out in like the trades or something at some point. Maybe I'll give Ernie Ball Music Man a call because I do have I have spent a lot of money on Ernie Ball Music Man guitars. But and one of the reasons this was interesting to me when I noticed this was because one of the things I asked Close Guitars when I approached them about this, my Grand Cutaway Mini, and one of the first things I said to them was, "Hey, I'm going to be recording my comedy album live. We're doing a music like a live performance of it. Do I need to license your headstock? Do I need to license your logo? Do I need to license your guitar, the use of it?" Because that's a thing that we actually have to think about. Like in planning and producing the show, I'm already thinking about like where the cameras are going, the shots that we're gonna do, and the guys at Close Guitars, the folks at Close Guitars, but specifically, I was talking to a gentleman. He was like, "Yeah, man, do it, go for it." They didn't give me any money. They didn't pay me. They didn't give me a guitar. I bought it, but they were like, "Yeah, totally. Use our logo. Feature it." They didn't say feature it, but you know, from certain angles, from certain shots, the way I got me and the director are thinking about where the cameras are gonna go. Yeah, that's the thing you got to think about. And when it's a production like this is Spinal Tap, you know, and you have these huge budgets for this, that's a thing you have to think about. Whereas like with my one guitar stand-up comedy musical album, we really don't have to think about that. That's not a thing, you know. Well, we do. That's why I brought it up. But it's one guitar. You know, there's a particular guitar. What is it? I guess a guitar stool that's got a place for me to put the guitar, like it's a built-in guitar. Like I have to contact them to find out if I can use their stool on stage. Do I have to block out the logo? Do I have to, you know, cover it with black tape? So that's a thing. That's a thing I got to think about. And I'm sure that's a thing that the folks producing this as Spinal Tap 2 were thinking about as well. I just find it interesting that Fender and Gibson are the big two are really nowhere to be seen in this trailer. Of course, time will tell. Maybe that'll change. Maybe the movie come out and there'll be just like Les Pauls all over the place. But considering how much Ernie Balls are being featured in this trailer, I don't think so. I think maybe Fender and Gibson aren't going to be too much a part of this. Anyway, this was fun. I liked doing that. I got home from San Diego. Great weekend of stand-up. I got in my massage chair that I bought for the house, and I just sat there watching the trailer over and over again, like just screen grabbing and go, what is that? Actually, I'm also going to cut this to be an episode of The Story Behind the Strings. It's going to be a long episode of The Story Behind the Strings, but you know, I'll release the podcast tomorrow. I'll release this episode, this chunk of stuff that we're talking about right here. If you like the show, if you want to hear more, like, subscribe, follow the channel, Comedy on 11, where I talk about comedy and music. This was a great episode. It was really fun. You can go to any of your podcatchers of choice, subscribe. New episode every Tuesday. Talk about comedy and music. And all the fun I have doing it. Gear stuff, gear news, stuff that I spend money on that I shouldn't spend money on, and I definitely shouldn't talk about on a podcast because my girlfriend might hear it. But yeah, if you liked it, if you had a good time, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, keep listening, and remember to turn the laughs up to 11.